This is a fan favorite from a couple of weeks ago. We get the vlogger Irish Jamie. Hello, Jamie. You're up
Hello,
next.
Bart. How are you?
How's
Happy
it
New Year.
going? Happy New Year. Are you in the U.S. right now?
No, I am in Vancouver. I just
Oh, that's
returned
right.
from Whistler.
You just returned from where?
Whistler, it's a ski resort. I was up there for New Year's
Ah, Whistler in. I've
in
heard
BC.
in VC. Okay. Okay. Cool. So you were on the Pacific time here, right around 2:30 in the afternoon. So
Yeah, spot on.
you got a hand for us?
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting one. I've sent it to a few people, and opinions are very split. So that should make it pretty decent to have a look at it.
Okay. Let's do it.
So the hand, it's 2-5 at park here, but the 10 straddle has been mandatory for the last couple of orbits, so it's 2-5-10.
Okay.
So I'm playing 15-60, and I'm the effective stack for this hand.
1560.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Canadian.
yeah, Canadian.
Looney. Okay. Go ahead. That by the way, if people when I say that, it's I don't know if actually people say that, but it's slang because
The
Canadian
loonies
dollar.
and the toonies.
Yes. Well, I don't know where it comes from, but I just know that the Canadian dollar is like a commodity currency that's tied to oil. But okay,
Yeah.
so 1560. Okay.
So middle position opens to 35.
Okay.
The, the cutoff calls, and I look down at the 10 of clubs, 10 of diamonds in the big blind.
Okay.
So I three bet it to $180. Middle position folds, and the cutoff calls.
Okay. I would assume that you were incentivized to three bet because of that dead call. So now you have a double flat, right? Cut off calls, right?
Yeah, and then also if I flat as well, the straddler is more than likely going to come
Sure.
along.
That's a good point too. Of course, you're playing this from the middle. This is almost a slam dunk three bet. I was just gonna say, like, if you were closing the action and MP had opened and it got around to you, and say you were in the straddle or you were playing a two blind big blind, how often do you three bet here?
I think I would probably three bet a bit less than often, just given the fact that the middle position and the cutoff are two of the better regs in the game. So I don't think I'd go too wild with the three bets out of position.
I think you'll appreciate what I'm about to say, Jamie. I watched one of our content creators, Squish My Tomato, play on Hustler Casino Live recently, and then I saw some hands that Doug Polk played on his own stream on the Lodge, and they took a strategy that was quite interesting. It doesn't necessarily come into this play, but it's something to think about when playing against weaker players because this cutoff is double flatted. I mean, this dynamic might not be there, but I saw Poke like flat with queens and then double flat with queens. I saw Squish do a lot of flatting in otherwise situations on paper where it would be a slam dunk three bet because it's a mix of bad and good players. And the good players, it's a combination of trap slash keep these idiots in behind me with some good hands. It's just something to note.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so we're off, and pot is what, like 200, something like that?
So the pot is, I think it's
Oh,
410
400.
on the flop. Yeah.
Mm.
So flop comes down queen of clubs, four spades, seven of diamonds,
All right, so queen of clubs, four
four
spades,
spades,
seven of
seven
them.
of diamonds.
Okay, yeah.
So I think we're probably just going to be betting 100% of our range here, given we've such a big range advantage. So I continue for $125 and
Ooh,
the cutoff calls.
small sizing, huh?
Yeah,
So I've been saying this for a long time, but I definitely confirmed it last night because it had been some time before since I had played and I played 510 and Encore. I don't know who this guy is, who you're playing, but I see some people show up with some bizarre hands on the river with some bizarre bluffs when you use small c bet sizing because they just think that you're weak, and there's a hand that we'll talk about too. I don't know if this guy's a reg, but you do have to remember, some of you nits out there, if you use small sizing, your opponent's going to have more hands, and sometimes you're going to have to call down on later streets. And this is a pretty good example here, Jamie, because like you have like it's like a hand that you sort of want a protection volume bet, but it's probably, you can't go, you're not thinking about this as a three street hand. Usually you're checking turn, and sometimes as this hand gets set up, you might check turn and face a bet on the turn and call, and then you're face a bet on the river, right? And you're like, okay, well, did I use large sizing or small sizing on the flop? Because if I used small sizing, he's going to have more hands at the end that he needs to bluff with. But if I went pot on the flop, that keeps him a little bit more honest. You know what I mean?
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay, so 660.
And then, so the turn comes to four clubs pairing the bottom card.
Okay.
So I thought this was kind of interesting. Obviously now only has one combo of fours, so I think we're likely to still have the best hand. He can definitely have some Queen X suited, but this is where the hand kind of gets a bit unusual. I think usually you'd see someone check with tens here and check call,
Sure, sure.
but
Yeah.
I decided to continue again for 1/3. I bet 225, and my reason was when I was thinking about it in game, I was thinking he would have three bet a hand like Ace Queen pre, so his best hand is going to be like King Queen. He definitely does have some Queen X, but then he's also going to have some eights and nines, and then maybe some backdoor club floats. So I didn't want to check call, and then the river either go check check, and we just lose to a queen, or get put in a tough decision, like a tough spot on the river. And I thought by betting, sometimes maybe if he is sticky with these pairs, we can sometimes get some value. And then if he does have a queen, we still allow ourselves to bluff the river because we're still going to be betting our aces, kings, queens, etc. on the turn.
Yeah, but how are you figuring out if you're going to bluff or check the river? Just curious.
I think on the turn, I decided if he did call the turn,
Hmm.
I was going to bluff it on the river.
But you're saying that you're trying to price him in with like nines and tens though, too. Excuse me, eights and nines and things like that too, right?
Yeah, but so I think sometimes he can, which kind of makes it kind of weird on the turn that it's like we can be sometimes getting value, but in my
I,
head I wanted to bluff, which
I,
is kind of
I mean, here's the thing about your hand, though. I mean, I understand what you're saying, Jamie. The one little thing that I'll take slight exception is I think your hand's a little bit in between for what you're saying, and then we'll go deep in the weeds about your combo of hand with what you said with the backdoor clubs. And what I mean by that is that if he's supposed to call down and he's going to call down here with any queen, right? At the end, then the only thing that you're really accomplishing by taking a line like this, trying to get value from the in between hands, is possibly bluffing them off of specifically Jack Jack. I mean, that's a pretty narrow range, right?
exactly. And the weird thing about the hand was, I think if this hand, so if it was the original opener that called, I think I'm way more likely to check because he will have flatted ace queens. Where I think the cutoff is always three betting ace queen against a mid position open.
Right. And by the way, guys, this is another thing that live players will misplay because usually double flatters are bad players. Not always. We just went over that, right? Like, we saw Squish in Polk. But what makes it also very difficult to double flat in a scenario like this for all you nits out there, again, is that if you have an aware player like Jaime, because we're talking through it, realize that you've double flatted. If you flop top pair, you're not supposed to fold, right? Because you're going to get barreled off from somebody who knows you're double flatting, right? Like in terms of an MDF spot, if a guy double flatted here with like queen jack suited, how is he going to fold? Especially when the board starts pairing up and there's less full house combos out there,
Yeah.
right? So, but people will overfold just based upon their hand strength. One other quick sort of slight nuances. I think what you said about the backdoor clubs, I would, if you plug this into a computer, I bet that it would favor you betting tens without the club for what you were talking about. So
Yeah, I'd imagine so as well.
yeah, okay.
Because it just makes it more likely
Yeah.
now that he does have a hand that beats us. So
So call.
he calls the turn,
Hmm.
and the river now comes to six of hearts.
So I'm at 11-10, right? Something like that.
Yeah. So there's 11-10, and I have 10-30 left in my stack. So
And
I
six up.
decide to follow through and turn the 10 into a bluffs, and I decide to shove all in for 1,030.
So six of hearts, right? Six of hearts in the
Yeah.
river. So you decide to shove all in for
Yeah.
1,030. So again, I mean, I'll go back to what I just said on the turn. Do you think the player is clueless where you're trying to bluff him off of a queen?
So in my head, what I was thinking in game was, I think against some of the fish at the table, this would be suicide bluff because they're just not going to fold a queen. But I knew this guy he's a good reg. I don't know what his opinion of me is, but if you look at my line, like it just looked so strong because I'm going to play aces, kings, queen, ace, queen this way. So I think he probably, as far as bluffs, he's probably going to just think I maybe do this with ace, king. I don't think he'd expect me to pull the trigger with tens as a bluff. It's pretty unorthodox, this line.
Well, I just think that again, I mean, just this is me right off the cuffs, but I don't have, if we're really talking about theory, I don't have the luxury of real-time computer aid, but off the cuff, what would seem to make sense to me though is that if a scenario ever is double flatted, like I said before, Queen X is supposed to be calling down here. Now,
Yeah,
if you think that you're going to make a deviation and overbluff because you think Queen X might fold, then okay. But this again goes back to what I said on the turn. Your hand's kind of an in-between one, because if all Queen X is folding, then what do you're trying to get jacks to fold, which is going to three bet off most of the time anyways, pre.
I agree.
Are you ever let me ask you this question. Is there ever a chance that you actually might get hero called here by a worse hand?
Well, what I was actually thinking was if he did have a hand like King Queen, and say he just expected that my only combo that I bluff off this line with is Ace King, like in theory, then maybe nines is a better call because King Queen is blocking me bluffing off with Ace King.
Well, that's that's an interest that
weird to think, but
it's kind of an interest. So we used to say this too before. There are millions of different computations of combinations. I used to laugh when people said, "Oh, I made a combo bet on the river." I'm like, and a combo bet means getting better to fold and weaker to call. And I'm like, you can't make a combo bet on the river. There's no draws left, right? The equity's revealed itself. Sometimes it can happen when somebody has a combo of a hand that is a better bluff catcher, and you get bluff caught by a worse hand than what you were bluffing with, and you get like King Queen to fold.
yeah,
Very, very sort of. It's just it will happen once in a while. What do I think about your bluff here? Again, I keep saying it. I think in my live experience, I think it might be a little bit too much showdown value oriented and a little bit too in between, for me to make this play. I mean, obviously the 4 tripped up here, but what I was trying to say is, like, say it was like Queen 4-7 instead of like say it was Queen 4-7, the turn was like a deuce, and instead of you having tens, like you had Ace 4 and you took this line. I would like that better. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So, okay, so you go all in, and
He tanks for a really long time, which was pretty uncomfortable when you're sitting there praying that he folds. But after I'd say about 4 minutes, he let it go.
did you ever find out what he had?
I asked him what he had after, and he said he folded top pair. He didn't say which combo, he just said top pair.
Claims top pair. I'm just trying to think, at 1560 effective at 2-5-10 in a pre-flop configuration of MP, and then he's in the cutoff. What hands with Queen X are flatted in this spot?
It has to be like Queen Jack suited.
Right. Well, you've got 10 of clubs, 10 of diamonds. So I'm looking at the Queen 10 combos. So there would be 2 Queen 10 suiteds left, and then there's going to be 3 Queen Jacks, right? So you would think King Queen suited is usually going to be either 3-bet off, or you wouldn't want to fold that, right? If he's aware.
Yeah.
Blocking King.
Because if he's aware, if he doesn't have Ace Queen, well, then he's going to have to just call down with that hand.
That's an interesting one. What if you had Ace Queen? How would your line have differed here?
I think I would have still took the same line, just because I know he doesn't have Ace Queen. Or maybe if I had King Queen or Ace Queen, you could use a block sizing on the river.
Mm-hmm.
What would your opinion be on that?
Well, I mean, if you have Ace Queen, right, it's less likely that he has a queen, and you've sized so small that you've kept those hands in. So you might want to try to get a crying call from a non-queen type of hand here and give him a price.
Yeah, I think so too.
Whereas if you unblock top pair, like you've had aces or kings, I think you wouldn't want to do that. But thank you very much for the call, Jamie. Appreciate it.
Cheers. Thanks, Bart.
Jamie, of course, has a YouTube channel. It's the Irishman Poker, right? Irishman Poker?
Yeah, that's the one.
All right, buddy.
Thanks for having us on again.
You got it.